Hello, pastors. My name is Jim Furgerson. I'm a cardiologist with an interest in preventive cardiology, and I'm delighted to be supporting Texas Baptist with this presentation on ways you can improve your physical health. As stated here, I do not know any of you well enough to provide individual medical advice, and one of my first recommendations today is to get with your primary physician or healthcare professional after this presentation to craft a personal plan for your health improvement. I hope to educate you about proven ways to improve physical health and assist you in crafting questions and ideas about health improvement that you can discuss with your healthcare provider. Obviously, if you do not have a primary care provider, you need to put that at the top of your to-do list for your health considerations. What is your own idea of physical health? For some, it is simply not being in a state of physical illness. For others, it may relate to how one looks and feels physically. Others may relate optimal physical health to having the functional status to perform physical tasks that are desired or needed in the course of their lives. The World Health Organization defines optimal health as a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. The Church Health Initiative has expanded on this definition by including these different areas in the concept of pastor health. We believe each of these areas is interconnected and contributes to the global health of the individual. How would you answer this question? What is your opinion of the current state of health in America? Answer A, Americans are more healthy and live longer now than before. Answer B, Americans are less healthy but live longer now than before. Answer C, Americans are more healthy but live shorter than before. Or answer D, Americans are less healthy and live shorter than before. The lifespan question is answered here on this graph of the expected lifespan from birth. As you can see, for the 4 decades from 1970 until 2010, there was a consistent increase in the expected lifespan for the United States, as well as other developed countries such as Japan and Canada. However, from 2010 until 2017, while life expectancy continued to increase in Japan and Canada, there was a plateau and even concern for a drop in life expectancy in the United States, which went from 78.84 years in 2014 to 78.79 years in 2017. Obviously, this is a small decrease, but the trend was a disturbing change from our own prior progress in the United States and was lagging behind other developed nations. The latest data from the 2019 suggests that there has been some recovery of this earlier drop in life expectancy in the last few years, with U.S. life expectancy in 2019 now at 78.87 years. So if our longevity in the U.S. is not continuing to go down, it is not improving as expected. While there are a number of theories about this alarming change in mortality in the United States, most experts relate the underlying cause to adverse changes in lifestyle in our country in the last decade, denoted by habits and substance abuse, drugs, alcohol, and tobacco, decrease in physical activity, suboptimal nutrition, and an increase in rates of obesity. So if our lifespan is stagnant, what about our health span? Unlike lifespan, which is simply the number of years one is alive, health span refers to the amount of our lifespan that we spend in a healthy state. For many of us, health span is more important than lifespan. And if we have done a suboptimal job of improving lifespan, I fear that our health span has fared even worse. Chronic health conditions such as poor diet, low physical activity, obesity, high blood pressure, tobacco use, and high cholesterol may not initially create a state of physical limitation or perceived poor health, but ultimately leads to diseases like diabetes, heart disease, vascular disease, and some common cancers, which in turn lead to a distinct increase in events like heart attack, stroke, heart failure, angina, and vascular limb pain, which hold the potential to markedly decrease our functional capacity and rapidly lead to the loss of health, disability, and death. Much of the beneficial effects of modern medicine, what I like to call the high-tech application of medical advances against end-stage conditions, works at the point in the process indicated by the red arrow. Modern medicine keeps many people alive that have already suffered greatly in the loss of health span. This is encapsulated by the quote from the geriatrician seen here. For purposes of our discussion, the term morbidity can be used interchangeably with loss of health and mortality as loss of life. And so the statement says we really have not experienced much compression of morbidity to date because we have reduced mortality more than we have prevented morbidity. So the question is, how do we increase both health span and lifespan? The good news here is that much of this is determined by choices that you make and how you live your life every day. This slide shows the determinants of physical health. Starting on the four corners, we have the broader indicators where you will find overlap with the four pillars of health as defined by the Church Health Initiative, specifically financial and relational health. The social context of health and the physical environment deserve special mention. If you live in a neighborhood where it is unsafe to go for a walk, the air is heavily polluted, or is in a so-called food desert, where nutritious food is hard to come by and has been replaced by a plethora of cheaper fast food chains, there are severe barriers that may supplant the motivation to make positive behavior changes. Similarly, if you do not have access to quality health care when you get sick, your health is likely to suffer. Inside the circle are the more proximate determinants of health, and I have arranged these according to those that are modifiable, not modifiable, or partially modifiable. Genetics and prior illness and injury are not modifiable. Current illness is modifiable and should be optimized through care with your healthcare professional. Life stressors are also partially modifiable. And you should use the other aspects of the Church Health Initiative in working on these areas. What I want to focus on for the remains of the presentation is what you are empowered to do in your daily choices and activities. Indeed, you will find that your daily habits, nutrition, and activity are some of the most powerful ways to improve your health span and your lifespan. These 5 behaviors are scientifically proven to improve health and longevity. They are tobacco avoidance, moderate exercise, obesity avoidance, taking a healthy diet, and using alcohol sparingly or not at all. I like to call these the Big Five. The results of this study, published in the journal Circulation in 2018, are the basis of these recommendations. Illustrated here are the effects of adhering to the Big Five. In the panel on the right are the results for women, and on the left for men. The bars show the years of remaining life expectancy from age 50 for groups of individuals based on the number of the Big Five healthy behaviors that they adhered to. For a 50-year-old male who is adhering to none of the Big Five, he is expected to live another 25 and a half years. Compare that with the outcome of the 50-year-old man who was compliant with all of the Big Five. He is expected to live another 37.6 years. That equates to 12 years of additional life for making healthy decisions and lifestyle. So, lifestyle is a powerful intervention. If I could make a pill that could do this, I would be a very rich man. Why do the Big Five make such a difference in outcomes? Because the biggest underlying factors of the leading cause of death and disability in our country, heart disease, and to a lesser extent, the second leading cause of death, cancer, are largely related to adherence to the lifestyle factors included in the Big Five. So let us take a deeper dive on each of the Big Five. First and foremost, if you smoke, you need to find your own motivation to quit, set a quit date, and discuss this with your healthcare provider. As seen on the graphic from a study in the prestigious New England Journal of Medicine, smoking reduces life expectancy by at least 1 decade. If you smoke, quitting is probably the most important single thing in your power to do to improve your health. After smoking cessation, physical activity is probably the next most important lifestyle change. Here you can see the effects of leisure time physical activity on the risk of dying. If you are not an avid exerciser, there is much good news here. On the y-axis is the risk of dying, and on the x-axis is a way to quantify the amount of physical activity performed using a term called MET hours per week. This is a function of the intensity of the exercise and the duration of the time spent performing that exercise. In many ways, MET hours is a way to think about the dose of medicine we call exercise. And like all medicines, there is a dose response curve, meaning that as the dose increases, it improves the status up to a point when the side effects from higher doses become evident. The good news is that if you are sedentary, as seen in the upper left part of the curve, your risk of dying falls very rapidly with very little leisure time physical activity added. In fact, if you are sedentary, adding a 30-minute walk at a normal pace 4 times a week is associated with a 20% reduction in the risk of dying. As you can see, there is additional benefit to a maximum of the equivalent of jogging 15 miles per week. But note that the mortality risk starts to rise with more intense, longer duration exercise. If you are not doing some physical activity on a regular basis, you should make some personal goals and discuss them with your healthcare provider. Here are a few pointers about how to successfully use exercise in your personal health regimen. First, set a SMART goal, which is specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. Consider where you are starting from, what you are currently capable of doing, and set a realistic goal to achieve in a reasonable amount of time. If possible, find an activity you enjoy and can see yourself doing for a long time as you age. Once you have set your goal and discussed it with your healthcare provider, find someone to share your goal with who will provide you with feedback, encouragement, and accountability. Sharing data from your wearable activity tracker or smartwatch can be a great way to do this. Reward yourself when you reach the milestones. These are definitely worth celebrating. Many of us are social exercisers. When we have someone else to exercise with, we find more meaning, purpose, and fun in getting this done. For some of us, especially if you do not have a friend or relative to do the coaching, another person can be of use as a coach. Finally, plan your exercise in your weekly agenda. As you make plans for each day of the week, make sure that you are finding time for your exercise. Plan it like you would any other important appointment in your life. I think you will agree with me that changing our diet is one of the most difficult lifestyle changes to make and sustain. But as you see here from the Latin root for diet, the definition implies that our diet is best viewed as a lifelong change in eating habits that produces lasting effects on our health. For most of us, short-term fad diets serve no lasting purpose. As Hippocrates said, let food be thy medicine, and let medicine be thy food. So, much like exercise, we should view healthy eating as a form of medicine for our bodies. For many reasons, nutrition science is very difficult to perform well, and this may be a part of the reason for the seemingly constantly changing recommendations about what to eat. In my experience, some form of the Mediterranean style diet seems to have both the best science and to be most palatable of the choices for most Americans. Recently, a plant-based diet has also been highly recommended. If you choose to go vegan for your health, you can be successful if you can maintain adherence. For the rest of us, I recommend making your plate look like that on this graphic. This includes a high proportion of vegetables with each meal, as well as fresh fruits and whole grains. A lean source of protein is important, as noted. Do not drink your calories. Instead, drink water to your level of thirst and unsweetened tea or coffee if you desire. Distinctives of the Mediterranean diet include more liberal use of olive oil and tree nuts if you tolerate these ingredients well. Most unhealthy diets have one or more of these features: excessively large portion sizes, use of sugar or highly refined white flour, or excessive salt, which is important to avoid if you have high blood pressure or most other forms of heart disease. Trans fats are becoming easier to avoid as manufacturers are becoming more avoidant of these ingredients, but avoid nonetheless. Associated with the apparent worsening of the health of our nation for the last few decades has been the remarkable increase in the prevalence of overweight, defined as a body mass index of 25 to 30, and obesity, defined as a body mass index greater than 30. According to current statistics, most Americans are overweight or obese. As demonstrated in this study showing the relative risk of death on the y-axis and the body mass index on the x-axis, obesity is associated with a higher risk of premature death, which increases with increasing body mass over 30. The body mass index, or BMI, is calculated from the height and weight. Again, a normal BMI is 18.5 to 25, overweight is 25 to 30, and obesity is greater than 30. Everyone should know his or her BMI. So what if you are in the red zone for body mass index? If your BMI is over 30, you need to discuss this as a medical problem with your healthcare provider. You will want to review your medications with the provider, as some commonly used medications can contribute to weight gain. Also, you will want to ensure that there are no underlying medical conditions that could lead to weight gain. You need to make a plan for weight loss using these modalities listed on the slide. For those that have not had sufficient success with other methods, weight loss surgery can be very effective, but requires careful preoperative evaluation, counseling, and education. As shown on this slide of mortality risk and alcohol consumption, there may be a very mild benefit to light alcohol consumption of less than 1 drink per day, although this remains a somewhat controversial topic, with other studies showing no such benefit. What is clear is that heavier drinking leads to a substantial risk for premature mortality. Of course, using alcohol in any amount presents the risk for other problems related to substance abuse, impaired driving, and impulsivity. For physical health, alcohol should be avoided or used sparingly. In pursuing physical health and proper prevention, you should know what screening tests are recommended based on your specific health history. This is best done by educating yourself and discussing the plan for prevention testing with your primary care provider. Since some of these testing recommendations depend on the preferences of the patient, I recommend that you do your homework by visiting the U.S. Preventive Services Task Force on the web before your checkup. Did you know that adults need shots too? Many diseases that you are at risk of contracting can be effectively avoided with immunizations that are taken as adults. You need to know what shots are indicated for you based on your medical history. You can check the shots you need for yourself online with the Centers for Disease Control. Like screening tests, I recommend that you get an idea of shots that you need based on recommendations from the CDC and discuss them with your healthcare provider at your checkup. After our talk today, I hope that you have been encouraged, educated, and motivated to pursue or maintain excellent physical health in the future. While your healthcare provider has an essential role, as we have discussed today, you play the biggest role in obtaining good health with your interest, daily habits, and participation in living well. I recommend that you use this checklist to begin this journey to health. Number 1, schedule a wellness exam with your primary care provider. If you do not have a primary care provider, you need to get one. Number 2, know your numbers. As part of your checkup, make sure that you know your numbers at baseline. These include blood pressure, cholesterol, body mass index, hemoglobin A1C, and vitamin D levels. Your primary care provider should be able to calculate your cardiovascular risk from this data and classify you as low, intermediate, or high risk. Based on this assessment, you should inquire with your provider about whether using medications to lower cholesterol is indicated. Number 3, quit smoking or do not start. Number 4, set a SMART exercise goal based on your current level of exercise and any limitations. Discuss your plan for exercise with your provider before beginning. Number 5, take a healthy diet for life. If you need additional assistance, inquire about seeing a dietitian with your provider. Number 6, work toward a healthy weight. Number 7, use alcohol sparingly or not at all. Number 8, get the indicated screening tests that you need with your provider. Number 9, get up to date on your shots. And number 10, consider a personal health coach. This service can be vital in helping you overcome barriers and maintaining adherence to a healthy lifestyle. We have made a pre-printed checklist for your personal use, which will be made available to you. Please use it on your journey to health.